Coyote! Incredible!
Hello and welcome to the Big Toon Chat with myself and my co-host for the evening, Stephen from Geordie Talk. How are you doing, Stephen?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, it seems like a long time since I've spoke to you, but it's only been a couple of hours, hasn't it?
yeah. For our previous video.
So what were you doing? We're doing a relegation run-in video, and joining us we have Matthew Baldwin from the Fulham Focus. Is that a newspaper or a podcast?
It's a podcast.
A podcast, okay. And we've got Neil. Is that right, Neil?
No, I'm Joe. Sorry, I think Neil's supposed to be the Brighton guy.
Oh, well, there's the first mistake of the video. Thanks very much. Yeah, so basically we're just looking at the relegation run-in. So we've all four teams: Newcastle, Brighton, Burnley, Fulham, West Brom. The West Brom guy is not going to be joined anymore. He's got some uni work to do or something along those lines. I think he's give up really on his team trying to get survival. So yeah, he's not going to be joined with. But coming to you, Matthew, first. Fulham's result against Liverpool. I mean, what a massive result that was. I mean, you've really led us in trouble now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're looking at the sort of games that you're thinking, right, where can we pick up points? If we're going to close this gap to Newcastle, where are the points going to come from? I don't think any of us were really expecting it to come against Liverpool. I know we put in a decent performance against them earlier on in the season, and Liverpool have been on a little bit of an iffy run. But even so, none of us expected that it would be Liverpool would be the big one to get us back into it. We were thinking maybe Brighton a couple of weeks ago or Crystal Palace. Liverpool was completely off there. It was a free hit effectively. So to now have picked up 3 points out of it has changed momentum completely.
Did you, going into the game, did you think you were going to get anything from Liverpool? I mean, given the inconsistency that they have had this season, especially losing 5 at home before they played Liverpool, did you think you were going to get anything?
I thought a draw was probably possible. If you catch them, as they have had plenty of them at Anfield, if you catch them on a bad day, you might be able to get something. And if we're performing at our best, like we have against Spurs last week recently, when we arguably could have got a draw out of it. But then it wasn't really until we saw the team lineups come up, an hour before kickoff. That's when you see, Neco Williams, Reece Williams, and whoever the last guy is. I think it's Reece Phillips or something like that. Some bum. No disrespect, but it's when that lineup came out. That's when we thought, hang on, we might actually be able to win this thing. So I think it wasn't really until then that we actually thought, hang on, 3 points is now officially a possibility.
Okay. And Joe, coming to you now, the Burnley game. What did you think of that at the weekend?
I thought we were quite fortunate to stay in the game in the first half, to be honest. Arsenal, Saka had a chance, which he should have put away. Obviously, Aubameyang had already put them 1-0 up at that point. And then we get the very fortunate goal off Granit Xhaka, who just, for some reason, smashed it towards Chris Wood. It's Chris Wood's hip and goes in. So, yeah, we were quite fortunate, to be honest, to get the point. I thought in the second half we defended quite well. But even in the last 10, 15 minutes, Arsenal really started turning the screw and probably should have left Turf Moor with all 3 points. But at the time, we went 7 points clear of Fulham. So I remember thinking, well, Fulham have got Liverpool today, so that should be okay. I actually remember thinking, because I think we had Arsenal, then you boys had West Brom, or you had West Brom the day after, sorry.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at them fixtures and thinking, well, to be honest, Newcastle are probably going to beat West Brom, so it's Newcastle we need to worry about. Fulham are going to get beat by Liverpool, that should be okay. But obviously it ended up being totally different. But in terms of our game, yeah, we're quite fortunate, to be honest, but you'll take them all day long, especially when you're down there.
Stephen, do you want do a bit of talking about the West Brom game?
Yeah, I think I was of the same opinion as the Burnley fan. I mean, thinking we were going to go into the game to beat West Brom. Said, yeah, I think with Burnley getting that lucky point against Arsenal, said, well, we have to try and aim for Burnley trying to get overtaken. We would have overtaken Burnley if Burnley had been beaten. We'd won. Obviously, we didn't, but it would have looked a lot more rosier if we had been, say, higher than 15th. But with the Fulham game, I watched on the Sunday after the Newcastle game, and I must say Liverpool were absolutely atrocious. I think Fulham did well to stay in the game. They just sat back, and Liverpool didn't offer anything. Like with Nico Williams down the right side, Nat Phillips in defence. I mean, that Nico Williams, I watched him. I think he really struggled down the right side, trying to cut in on that Aina, and that Aina was just claiming it up all the time. It was a very frustrating match to watch as a Newcastle fans, wanting them to get beat with no offence to Matthew, but I was wanting Fulham to get beat so it would keep the gap down to about. I would have been happy with it being about 3 points, even though it's too close to call with the vastly superior goal difference. But to be honest, I can see Fulham getting themselves out of it. I think they're playing some great football. They've been unlucky in the past few games, and I think it could be Brighton's in trouble as well, in the same boat as Newcastle. I think it's either Newcastle or Brighton will go. So I don't think Fulham will get relegated. I think they're playing too well to go down under Scott Parker, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think West Brom are probably sitting ducks. I don't think they can get out of it. I think Sheffield United are far too far behind. Matt, do you believe Fulham have got enough to survive this season, given the position that they're currently on and the fixtures they've got coming up? They've got City, Leeds, Villa, Wolves, Arsenal next 5. What do you think?
I think we do have enough. We have enough to stay up. It's just a case of whether or not we use it. Like, for instance, if you go back to our game against Crystal Palace, that's the game where you think we need to get that one goal, and it just didn't come. That's where we need a clinical striker to make the difference. I mean, I'm not calling it a 6-pointer per se, because I think Crystal Palace are more or less safe. But if it comes down to that sort of game later on, or that game where we need that one shining player to get a goal, you just don't see where it's going to come from. That's why it was so much of a surprise that Mario Lemina was the one to get it, because no one ever thought that the midfielders were going to be the ones to contribute goals. They haven't really been doing that all season. So there is that little bit of a concern, and we've got the defensive side of it pretty much sorted with Areola, Tete, Anson, Adarabioyo, and Robinson/Aina, the combination of the lot. We've got that much sorted. There is still that little bit of, do we have enough going forward to, we could have killed the game off against Liverpool, for instance. We had a couple of chances, but we just couldn't put them away, and that could come back to haunt us. When we play Wolves, say, we could have 5 or 6 decent chances. If we don't put them away, as well as we are at the back, one mistake, and that's game over. So we do have enough. It's just a case of whether or not we utilise it.
Yeah, Joe, looking at Burnley's next few games, you've got Everton, Southampton, then you've got Newcastle, Man United, and Wolves. What sort of points prediction are you looking at for them 5 games?
Well, I think Everton, we could probably write that one off. But then after that, there's 2 massive games. Obviously, there's like you say, there's Newcastle. I was doing a podcast earlier today on our own channel, and we were looking at the fixtures, not just the next few, like the remaining fixtures for Burnley, the remaining fixtures for Newcastle, and the remaining fixtures for Brighton, and of course Fulham. And looking from now to the end of the season, Burnley have more winnable games than any of the other 3 down there, I think, for me. If we can get a point against Everton, I'll snap your hand off for that now. Newcastle at home and Southampton away, they're 2 winnable games. Whether we'll win them or not, obviously that's another matter. Southampton, I think they've took the foot off the gas. They started really well. I think we can go to Southampton and win, if I'm being honest. But whether we will or not, I'm not sure, because we do tend to make it difficult for ourselves this season. Last season, we won't even be in this mess. If you look at the teams we've just played at home, we've played Fulham at home. Burnley of last season would have won that game. We played West Brom at home, and no disrespect to West Brom, they had 10 men, and we didn't even have a shot on target against them. It was absolutely shambolic performance. That wouldn't have happened that season. We'd have won that game. We played Brighton as well recently. We played a very injury-hit Leicester as well. So there's 3 games out of them 4 that I think last season Burnley would have won, and they've just been way clear of it. But in the next few games, I've already predicted a defeat against Everton, so I'll carry on with that. I think we can beat Southampton, and I think we can beat Newcastle at home. But I'm probably going to predict 4 points. I think we can get 6. And 6 will really pull us out of it. But Burnley this season, they just make it difficult for themselves. Yeah. And I'll tell you what Burnley will probably do this season is get beat against Everton, draw away at Southampton, and draw at home to Newcastle, so not even drag themselves out of it. But I think the important thing for us now is against Newcastle and against Fulham is not to lose them 2 games. I think we'll lose them 2 games, and that's when we've got to start panicking.
Yeah, I think with Newcastle fixtures, I think they've got Burnley just after the international break. Which I think will be a good time to play Burnley, because hopefully we'll have at least 2 of our front 3 back, because we miss them absolutely massively. I mean, I'm not going to say we rely on them, but they are the most attacking threat that we do have. The rest of the... Sorry, Stephen, go on.
Sorry, go on. I was just saying we do rely on them, so go on. Sorry, Kev.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, the most attacking threat that we've got. We don't really... If them 3 are not playing, we struggle for goals. We proved it at the weekend against West Brom. I mean, I called it beforehand. I thought it was going to be a bore 0-0 draw because we don't have the attacking options going forward, and I think I was right. It was a boring game to watch, to be honest with you. I think we were lucky to stay in the game at 0-0. I think we could have been 2-3-0 down easy if West Brom had put their chances away. But at the same time, the first 20 minutes, we could have been 2-0 up. So, I mean, swings and roundabouts, I mean... A point was probably the fair result between the 2 teams, given that the attacking threat that both had was lackluster, if best. But yeah, I mean, going forward, Newcastle's next few games: Villa, Brighton, Spurs, Burnley. Again, we've got some winnable games as well. We've got Sheffield United, Fulham, last 2 games of the season. That could come down to who goes down, basically. To be honest with you, Matt, I'm not looking forward to that Fulham game come the end of the season, because if it was to be the case, then Fulham will have the momentum. They've got the better team at the minute, if I'm honest. And I think you'll probably send we're down if it comes to that. But before that, we've got things like Man City, Leicester, Arsenal, Liverpool consecutively. So we could be right in trouble. What do you think, Matt? Do you agree with that, or?
No, I think that's a fair assessment, and it has sort of been built up by the media, and I'm assuming both fan bases as well. It certainly has on our end. That it's basically all leading down to that final game of the season, at Craven Cottage. And I think we as a fan base, we're all not 100, at least from the Fulham focus side of it, we're not 100% confident going into that game. Everyone has said we would much rather, as much as we may have momentum and we're the better team and everything like that, and we'll have home advantage. As much as we may, if it goes down to the last game of the season and we need a win to stay up, as much as we're confident we do, we would much rather go into that game, with a 1 or a 2 point cushion, just because we're still not 100% sure that when it comes down to the big moment, whether or not we'll be able to do it. So I think the fixtures leading up to it are going to be, just as crucial. We've said that all we can really do is match Newcastle United's result. So even if, say, we go and beat Manchester City, it will all be all well and good. But if you guys have beaten Newcastle, if you guys have beaten Aston Villa on the Friday night, if you've already beaten them, then we're back to square one. Same again, if we, get a bad result somewhere, and you guys get a good result, then it kind of fluctuates everything well. So as much as we may be 3 points away from you at the moment, there's still a long way to go. So I don't think it could come down to that final day. But for all we know, depending on how the fixtures work out, it could all be done and dusted.
Stephen, how far do you think into the season the relegation battle will go down to?
I mean, I don't want it to go to the last game of the season because I don't think I'd watch it. I wouldn't even, my heart wouldn't be able to take it. If it's going to get sorted, I want it sorted with a few games to go. If we're going to get safe, we're going to have to really play out our skins to get knuckled down, get our good players back, Wilson, Miggy and ASM, try and get ourselves safe. Because I predicted just a bit of thing on Twitter, I'd say we get 10 points out of our last games we've got left. And I think that's pretty reasonable for what I would say. would say 10 points, that takes you under 36. I want us to stay up because I think relegation is going to be another big pain in the you-know-what. But I'd want it sorted before then, not to the last days. I don't think I could cope. I don't think Fulham could cope either. Or even Burnley for that matter. I don't think either of us could cope with saying Sky Sports pitches going backwards and forwards to different grounds. There's been a goal there, there's been a goal there, and your heart's skipping the beat all the time.
Joe, obviously Burnley have got the game in hand as well against Southampton, so did I just say Burnley or Brighton there? I meant Brighton. If I said Burnley, I apologise, but I meant Brighton. But they've got a tough run of games coming up as well. Apart from Southampton's the next game, and then they've got ourselves, Newcastle, then they've got Man United, Everton, Chelsea, 3 in a row. That could certainly bring them down towards where Fulham are at the minute and Newcastle, surely. Because if Newcastle and Fulham pick up a few points here and there, Brighton are right in the mix again, aren't they? Because they're not that far ahead on goal difference.
Yeah, Brighton are well in trouble. They just can't score goals. For all the praise that Potter and Brighton gets, which baffles me, they can't put the ball in the back of the net. And people sit there and say, oh, well, if he had a brilliant striker, then, they could be in the top 10. And that's all well and good, but they don't. But the thing is with Brighton, they do create a lot of chances. So eventually, they just need something like we got at the weekend, like something to go in off his arse. And I think their luck might turn. I think the problem for me is with Brighton, they need that luck. They need to get that goal, and I think then they'll kick on. But like you say, they've got a couple of tough fixtures coming up after a winnable one this weekend. So we'll see where they are after that. But I said that about Fulham. I remember when we got the gap to 7 points, as I said earlier, thought, right, 7 points now. Fulham have got a tough run, but Fulham will still be 7 points away in 3-4 games' time. And then next thing you know, 4 points away from us, and my anxiety is through the roof. So we'll see how Brighton get on the weekend.
You're the only one, Joe. My anxiety.
I was working at this table and I had it on my Alexa thing next to me, and it's like, and it went full-time whistle. I'm like, oh, for God's sake! My hands were clammy and everything. I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah, you're the only one.
Connor, welcome to the chat. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. We've just basically been touching on the next 5 fixtures for our football teams. What's your thoughts on Brighton's next 5 fixtures of Southampton, Newcastle, Man United, Everton, and Chelsea? What do you think of the points predictor?
So we got a couple of winnable games, not easy games. There's no easy games here, but Southampton, we never do well against them, but I could see us getting like a point or something. And then Newcastle's obviously the big one. Massive. We need to win that game. And then the next 3, they're all like very hard, but I think we could probably like scope a couple of points here and there because that's just what we do. We play against the big teams and play really well against them, and play against the teams around us and struggle. So I think we'll get 4, maybe 5 points from them.
It's interesting. Do you think your lack of goals for Brighton at the minute will spell danger at the end of the season?
Yeah, massively. Like, we're creating so many chances and just like nothing seems to be going in, hitting the woodwork all the time. Even like missing penalties and stuff like that. Like, how can we miss so many chances? Like, it's getting to the point where it's not even unlucky. It's just bad finishing.
I mean, the last 2 games.
What's on Brighton?
Sorry.
Wait, what? Sorry.
No, go on. It's fine.
I think like 3 people were talking at the time. I didn't hear what anyone said.
Should I go, Kevin?
Stephen, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
I mean, with your Brighton, they had so many shots against Crystal Palace. They had so many shots the next game. They had probably about 65 shots and about 2-3 on target. So I think Brighton's problem is they can't finish. I mean, I watched the game against West Brom. I thought you were very unlucky to have that free kick chalked off, which is a very dodgy free kick to have chalked off as the referee give it, then change his mind after. Then you get a penalty, you hit the crossbar, then later on you get another penalty. You think, oh, we'll put this away, and then you get then Danny Welbeck gets the post, you just think it's not going to be our day when stuff like that happens, does it?
Yeah, we've like there's been games where we've just dominated them for the whole time. Like we take Aston Villa for example, home. I think Emi Martinez just had the game of his life, and we had like 25 shots and like 15 on target or something, and just still finished 0-0. Like it's just we can't. There's nothing we can do. We just can't finish. Like I think we need, if we stay up, we need to buy another striker. Otherwise, we're in trouble. But I'm doubting that at this point, because it's a bit like if we can't score goals, then we're not going to win any games.
Joe, Sean Dyche, obviously a Burnley legend. Do you think he's got enough quality players in the team for them to stay in the Premier League?
This season, yeah. I think we're in a position. I genuinely, ultimately think we will be okay. I think we've got enough points on the board, and there's enough teams underneath us that are struggling. Obviously, of course, we can get dragged into it. This season, yes, I think we have got enough to stay in the Premier League. Next season, that's a different debate. Especially if the rumours have it, should I say? I don't want to go full Adele on you. That Tottenham want Pope, and even if it's 50 million quid, which is what's being banded about. And Leicester still want James Tarkowski or not, and even if that's 30 million quid, you can bring all that money in. But if you're losing players like Nick Pope and James Tarkowski, Burnley are built on how good they are at the back. Burnley are, in a similar way to Brighton, can't finish, but Brighton create about 50 chances a game. Burnley create one and miss it. So that's the difference. But the same issue lies. Both teams are decent at the back. Obviously, we've got Tarky, they've got Dunk. And can be sort of like solid at the back and build on that. Whereas if we lose Pope and Tarky next season, then we will be probably Sheffield United sort of territory at 11 points after like 30 games or whatever it is they're on, and down by Christmas pretty much. But we obviously have got new owners. I'll say that quietly on the Newcastle podcast. We obviously have got new owners, so fingers crossed that they can put their hand in the pocket in the summer, because that's something that Burnley haven't done. Like you look at Brighton coming up after Burnley. I know Leeds are massive and Villa are massive, but they both come up after Burnley. Fulham, another probably relevant example. These clubs have come up after Burnley and just spent more money and brought a lot of players in, whereas Burnley over the last 4 or 5 seasons just haven't really brought many players in. We've brought Josh Brownhill in, who's ended up doing well, and we brought Dale Stevens in, who, by the way, you robbed us. I hope we kept the receipt, because he's an absolute shambles. He deserves to go back. It was class in the Championship and 5 years ago. But now, what is he, 33, 34? It's ridiculous how we paid £1 million for him. But that just goes to show how bad our recruitment's been over the last few years. It's not been good enough. He's come in to sit on the bench. He has come in to be backup. But when he's coming in and being backup, he's not good enough. So, we need to start spending money. We need to start buying players. But the problem is the market has outgrown us a little bit, because, as I've said, Villa have come up, Leeds have come up. And what Burnley used to do is they'd go into the Championship and buy the players doing well in the Championship. Chris Wood, Charlie Taylor, Mate Vidra. But now the likes of Matty Cash and the other lad that they signed from the Championship, and then you've got Benrahma at West Ham, they're going for like 30 million quid these days. Burnley can't afford 2 players at 30 million quid, even without selling people, even with selling the likes of Pope and Tarker, that they'd struggle. Next season's where the debate really is for Burnley, provided, of course, we don't get dragged into it this season. If Fulham could very kindly stop winning games, that would be brilliant.
Joe, would you like Jeff Hendrick back?
No, I tell you what. I'm saying Brighton have robbed us. We robbed you even more, and he were free. That lad is gash. You can have him and keep him there. He's on your hands.
He's just no good for Newcastle at all. He had one good game.
Start of the season, weren't it? Start of the season against West Ham.
I know, that was it. That's his one good game. Like you say, he's absolutely gash. Me and Kev just pull our hair out watching him every week, getting to start every game. Just does my head in. I can't stand the bloke. I just can't stand him as a football player. This lad was linked to AC Milan. I wish AC Milan.
That must have been agent. That must have been agent talk. It must have been. There's no way AC Milan looked at Jeff Hendrick and gone, "He'll do." No way.
Joe, you've just been mentioned that you want to spend a bit of money for the new owners that are coming in. Newcastle have actually had that luxury in the last 2 windows. They've brought in Joe Linton. They've brought in Callum Wilson. Joe Linton, I'm going to echo what you said. I hope we kept the receipt, because he's absolutely shocking.
You spent a lot of money
how
on him,
we
don't
spent
you?
40 million on him is just an absolute disgrace. Hoffenheim must be laughing their pants off at us because we're stupid enough to go over there, put 40 million on the table, and of course they've accepted it. They're not going to not accept that. But what happens, Matthew? What happens, Scott Parker, come the end of the season? Obviously, a few clubs will be looking at him for a new manager. He's done pretty well this season, given the circumstances and the team that he's got. Do you see him staying with Fulham?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an intriguing one because, and I was talking about this today on the WhatsApp group with the Fulham Focus guys, is if he stays up, if does going down help us or hurt us in his chances of staying with us? Because if he goes down, you want to hope that he'll be there to, as Sean Dyche did, he proved he can get the guys up, he can get them up again, sort of thing. But if we get relegated and all of a sudden pick a name, long shot, but say Spurs get rid of Jose Mourinho. Scott Parker obviously has the affinity with Spurs. Is there enough there to make you think, right, Scott Parker could be tempted to go to Spurs, or say everything goes wrong at West Ham with David Moyes, affinity there, he goes to West Ham. It's a bit of a weird one because he's obviously proved that he can do something in the Premier League. He had a bit of a rough start with the recruitment and everything like that going on above him. So it's not all his fault that we're down here where we are. He's got potential as a manager. So we hope that we stay up because that should really solidify him as the manager. There's still a lot of talk about the players that we could lose, the loan players like Ariano and Anderson. But I think the main reason we want to stay up is to keep Scott Parker in the job, at least for one more season. Because once we have that second season in the Premier League, and we can get, the financial incentives to get that, use the money to build a decent squad to be set up for a number of years rather than just keep scraping by every 12 months. Then you can see, right, Scott Parker, you've done well, move on to England or whatever it is that is in export call. We're fine, you've set us up, well done, we'll be fine without you. It's really about getting that first season under your belt and then taking from there. If we go down, I do think there is a risk, even if it's if say Newcastle stay up at our expense. I can obviously see Mike Ashley saying, Scott Parker, let's bring you in. So I think if we do stay down, there's always the risk, but I don't think it's a major risk. I do think there is hopefully the potential for him to do, as I said, as Sean Dyche did. Right, you took us up once before, you got us down, we trust you to kind of bring us back up again.
Do you not think that if they do stay up, then it's going to be more like clubs wanting them and stuff, and then the likes of Tottenham or something, if they do Mourinho, then because he stayed up with that Fulham team, that's more of an achievement than going down, because you don't want a team like Tottenham having a relegated manager
Yeah, that's true, but that is the gamble. But if he stays up, if he keeps us up, that's more of a as you say, an accomplishment, more of a status symbol. So that will make him more. They'll make him more appealing. But at the same time, we can, the owners can then say, right, you've done this. Let's see you take the next step. Let's see you push towards mid-table. We're going to give you the players that you've got now that you did so well. You did so well with him. We had the dodgy start of the season. But with this team that you have, so like we've conceded, only Man City conceded fewer goals than us since the start of December. Now that you've got this team together, rather than the dross you had at the start of the year, we'll give you that again, make a few tweaks with the money that we get, and then we'll trust you to push us forward. I think that's going to be the incentive for him. It's right, we've got this far. I'm gonna be the man to take Fulham back to the next level. So hopefully that's the case. But that, as I said, there is always the risk that that status symbol, that accomplishment just makes it more attractive to the likes of Spurs, Newcastle, West Ham, whoever wants to take him.
Connor, what do you think of the future of Graham Potter, the next Pep Guardiola, apparently?
I really rate him as a manager. I feel like he's been so unlucky at Brighton. I think it's getting to the point where we might not even deserve him because of how good we're playing. He needs maybe a better squad and a bigger challenge. I wouldn't blame him if a better, a better team than us, like a mid-table team or above, for Europe, if they were to come for him, I wouldn't blame him if he left, because he will, I know it's a project here and stuff like that, but for his career, I think what he could do, like I've seen him as a manager. I think what he can do is like amazing. The way we're playing football is like unreal. Like obviously we're not scoring goals, but say he was to manage, I don't know, an Everton or something when they've got a goal scorer there. I just want to see what the heights would be. I think he'd do really well, like a team, a top half team pushing for Europe-ish or something.
Hopefully Newcastle win next season, but that's a different story. Stephen, do you agree with what Matt said about Scotty Parker, maybe Mike Ashley looking at them in the summer?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's like up-and-coming manager. He's had a good career as a player, been at different clubs: Charlton, Chelsea, Newcastle, Spurs, Fulham. He had a great playing career, and he basically moved into manager with Fulham. And in the Championship, they did well. Premier League, he's done. I think he's done really well. But I would love to see someone like a Scott Parker, like an up-and-coming manager, to be Newcastle manager. As the current one we have now couldn't even spell manager if it was spelled out for him in front of him. But I just don't like the bloke. With like a Lampard, Scotty Parker, I would have had Joey Barton, but he's gone to a different job. But I would have loved big Joey Barton. He always has a place in my heart for what he does to Sunderland. Trolls Sunderland all the time. I mean, he always has a place in my heart. He hates them.
I love Joey Barton as well. I love Joey. He does the same to Blackburn. Trolls of all time. Obviously played for Burnley, played for Newcastle. There's a lot of Burnley fans ask that question. If Dash left, would you want Joey Barton? And I don't think he's ready quite yet for a Premier League job. He needs to do well somewhere in the Championship, I think, for me. And then he'd be ready for probably a Burnley or even a Newcastle. But a lot of Burnley fans want to see him in the manager's job eventually. So it'd be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good manager. Sorry, Kev.
I was just about to say he's just gone to, is it Bristol Rovers he's just gone to?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you're right, Bristol Rovers.
Yeah, so obviously being with Fleetwood and then beating Sunderland with Fleetwood, which is brilliant. And then he's gone to Bristol Rovers, so maybe see what he can do with them and then maybe work his way up into the Championship. You never know.
Fingers crossed.
Stephen, what do you want to talk about?
Whether how do you think the season's going to finish? Do you all want to stay up, or how many points do you reckon you're going to get from the next games? Who your summer targets? Is there anything for the future? What do you think your future will hold? Fulham, Brighton, and Burnley. Matthew, start with you.
Well, when it comes to the future and the transfers, I think the biggest thing, as I talked about, is converting the players we've got on loan and turning them into permanent deals. Now that we've got a settled core of the squad together, the likes of Ola Aina and Alphonse Areola, I think, are the two. I mean, there's the likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Nairo Lamina, but I think they're somewhat, the more important ones are going to be defensive based. Alphonse Areola has arguably been the second best goalkeeper we've had in the Premier League era since Edwin van der Sar. He has been fantastic. I think the option on him is something like 9 million, which, you're talking about, fleecing people or being robbed earlier. 9 million for Alphonse Areola would be a steal. So we can convert him into a permanent deal, Ola Aina as well. Those are the big things. The big question is then going to be about Joachim Andersen, who's getting a lot of plaudits, quite rightly. He's been fantastic all season, but now that Fulham are a bit more in the limelight because of the relegation run-in, now he's starting to get a little bit more, Spurs fans I see are taking an interest in him. I'm sure everyone else would love to have him in their side. So I think that's going to be the big one, is if we do stay up, is keeping as much of the defence together as possible. Then really it's going forward, we need to get someone who's a little bit more clinical in my mind, because Mitrovic, as much as I love him, there just seems to be that little bit of a fall off when it comes to being in the Premier League. He was our top scorer last time round, but I think the majority of them were penalties or were throwaway goals when we were already relegated. So it's not quite the same level. So as I mentioned earlier, we're good at the back. We just need to add that little bit more emphasis going forward. So I think if we do stay up, and once we've addressed the defenders and getting the players in on loan, the priority has to be getting in a big money centre forward. And if that means sacrificing Alexander Mitrovic, if we can get something like 25 million for him, which I don't think is really too unrealistic, he's about 24, 25 now. That's what we paid for him. If we can at least get our money back and use that money to invest somewhere, on maybe a part exchange somewhere, then that would be, I don't want him to leave, but if we have to sell him to invest in the squad, then that's absolutely fine. So I think that's really going to be the real key thing, is keeping as much of the squad together as possible and just making those few tweaks. We don't want to go through a big rebuild like we did last time we came up.
Can Meyer be that guy?
Josh Meyer.
Can he be the kind of striker that you need?
No, I don't. I honestly don't think so. I think his record. I think his record when he was at Sunderland wasn't all that great, and I said it at the time. When it comes to someone who's going to be our saviour to stay up, I'm looking for someone who had a few more. I think it was like 3 goals in the Championship, something like that. I'm looking for someone with a little bit more conviction. I want someone who's Premier League ready, not someone that we're taking a chance on with Josh Mazza, who's probably Championship level, lower Premier League table at best. I want someone who's a little bit more high caliber, for instance. So Mazza, in my opinion anyway, and even based on the first couple of games and the FFC's put in, it's going to be a no.
Connor, what do you think? What's the future hold for Brighton?
So the club have announced that we're in some sort of debt or something. So I think we need to start. We'll probably sell one of our big players or the key players. And there's talks of Bissouma, White, or Lamptey going out, and then that'll give us money to then spend elsewhere. If any of the 3, I'd probably say Ben White, because we've got other good centre backs like Duncan, Webster, and then our youth is we've got loads of centre backs out on loan. We've got Ostergaard and Matt Clark doing really well in the Championship. So if we were to lose Ben White and get quite a lot of because Leeds have already had bids rejected and stuff. So if a team like Leeds come back in for him again, they've already shown they're willing to spend. So if we need to sell to buy, I'd accept it. It's because we need a striker, but I can't. There's no money for us to sell on a striker because we're in debt because of COVID. So we probably need to sell to buy, and then maybe this. I don't think Aaron Conley's up to standard yet as a striker, and Morpay's not clinical enough. But Morpay would probably work with someone else. So yeah, once again, we need a goal scorer guaranteed 20 goals a season or something. But just if the money's there to do it.
Yeah.
Stephen, I'm just going to jump in. Sorry. Matthew, I just want to come to you just before I forget this point. Do you think Alexander Mitrovic is a Championship striker, or do you think he's a Premier League striker who could actually make it in the Premier League?
I think he is a Premier League striker, Premier League centre forward rather, but he does need to have a lot of. He's not a one-man team. He can't make something happen. He needs to have the players around him making something happen. He needs to have basically what it was in the Championship, which was balls into the box, give him something to attack. Whereas under Scott Parker, that's not really been the system we played, mainly because now we're trying to scrap our way out of a relegation battle. That's not the kind. We're not as attack-minded as we used to be. The system just isn't there anymore. But I think if you can get him wingers and wing backs who can whip balls into the box for him, if you can have that number 10 behind him that can play a through ball for him to get onto, because he is good with his feet. As much as he's a physical aerial force, he is good with his feet. But he needs those players around him. He's not the kind of player that would do it on his own. So he can be a Premier League player, but he absolutely needs the support around him if he's going to make it happen.
Okay. Right, Stephen, going back to you.
So I'll ask you, Joe, what do you think the future is going to hold for Burnley?
I'd sort of echo what Connor and Matthew said, really. I want us to start being a bit more active in the transfer market. I think, as I said earlier, we don't really bring players in. The last time we brought a player in who was bought to come straight into the first team was Chris Wood. And this summer, he'll have been here 4 years now. That just shows how long it's been since we bought somebody to slot straight into the first team. We have bought players. We've bought Charlie Taylor, who at the time was brought in as a backup left back for Stephen Ward. We've brought in Josh Brownhill, who's done very well this season and now has other teams looking at him. But again, he was brought in to be back up to the two in midfield, Westy and Cork. And then you've got Ben Gibson, who was brought in, but again, he was back up to be Tarky and Ben Mee. So we need to start being a bit more active in the transfer market. And if that means selling people to bring people in, then so be it. You've a sort of like a factory only works if all the parts are moving. And so you need to sort of like give it a bit of a kickstart, Burnley, in the transfer market. And if we have to sell Nick Pope, so be it. Obviously, I don't want us to sell Nick Pope. I want him to stay. Same with James Tarkowski, but I think them two both will have their eyes on playing for England and playing for European nights and being involved in that sort of thing, because they are good enough to do it. I know Tarky does actually want to move on as well. Apparently, he wanted to last summer. So yeah, if we have to sell a player that doesn't want to be here anymore, I don't mean that in a negative way in terms of Tarky. I mean it because he wants to be playing in the Europa League or whatever and playing for England. And so be it. As Connor was just saying, that there's Ben White could be available at Brighton, for example. So that might be a nice, easy replacement for Tarky. In an ideal world, we'd have already brought somebody in who was learning. Now this is what the Burnley way tends to be. We tend to buy people, and this is why we haven't brought somebody who slots into the first team for 4 years nearly, because that's what we tend to do. We tend to buy people from the Championship or from somewhere like that, who then comes in as a reserve, playing as backup to the main two or the main goalkeeper. Even Nick Pope, when we brought Nick Pope in, he was backup to Tom Eaton. This is what we do. So in an ideal world, we would have signed a centre-back last summer, and he'd have been watching Tarky and Ben Mee now, watching the Burnley system, playing in cup games and that, learning off Dyche at training and things like that. And then when Tarky leaves in the summer, if Tarky leaves, probably more likely when, then he slots in nicely, brilliantly. But now we're going to have to spend a little bit more money, maybe buy somebody like Ben White at Brighton, who can be a like-for-like replacement. But yeah, I think the future is quite interesting because of the new ownership. So it's interesting to see how active we'll be in this summer transfer window. Because we weren't very active in the January transfer window, but they didn't. I think they were announced as the new owners on New Year's Day, so there's not enough time to get anything done. So, but yeah, I think for me, it's just being more active in the transfer market and maybe kick-starting us in the transfer market again. So we actually bring players in, and then fingers crossed we can push on again and start finishing back in the top half.
Joe, I'm just going to echo exactly what you just said there about being active in the transfer market. I think that's what Newcastle needed. We need a good transfer market because we got rid of Yedlin in January, and we didn't bring an alternative in, and then Manquillo got injured, and we didn't have an alternative right back, and we have to put up with Emil Kraft at the minute, who doesn't know which way left or right is, to be honest with you. And then I think personally Newcastle is a top 10 team. I think we need to be spending big money. We need to get some good players in, and we need to be challenging because that's all the fans want. We don't expect to win the Champions League, the Premier League, or this, that, and the other. We just want a team that attacks and plays well, has ambition to maybe do better than the week before, and always to do better than what they've played the week before, if you know what I mean. But Callum Wilson we brought in. We didn't have a backup striker. We're relying too much on Gale, Carroll, Joe Linton, who kind of hit a donkey's horse for the banjo. We've got them three, and I think Carroll, he's injury prone. Joe Linton can't score. Gale, I'm going to say he's a championship striker. I think if we had cashed in on him on the January, I think we could have got 20 million from a team that's looking to get into the Premier League. Stephen, do you see Newcastle keeping quality players if they go down, like your San Maximums, Almirons, Wilsons?
Absolutely no. I think if we do go down, which I hope we don't, I think we'll lose the bulk of our best players. Yeah, Martin Dubravka's, your Sam Maximan, your Almirons, your Wilson. Then players like that, people that's integral to us. I don't think Hayden would go. I think he would stay because he's the kind of player that would stay. Lascelles, Clark, them kind, Lewis, he would stay, I would reckon. Manquillo, we would still have a good team if he went down. Just our good flair players, like I said, like I've just mentioned, would want to move on to a bigger club and playing a Champions League and playing a better league. I'm not really about playing Blackburn away or Stoke away or whatever.
Why did you have to choose Blackburn?
Sorry, I didn't know I forgot you were here. It's just the first club to come to my head. I said Blackburn, so it's come to the first club to come to my head. I know you got a good rival with them, but I say Stoke away on a wet Tuesday night.
Yeah, no one likes Stoke away, do they, to be fair? Nobody likes Stoke away.
I think we've gone and lost Connor. I think he's disappeared again.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind. So Matthew, Scotty Parker, do you think he's lucky to still be in a job when obviously the summer started and then the start of the season, by Christmas he weren't doing well at all. Do you think that he's lucky to be in a job, or do you think Fulham maybe would have swung the axe and got rid of him and got someone else in?
No, I think the plan was always to have him see out the season, because when before the season started after promotion, we handed him a new contract till I think his initial contract was going to run out at the end of this season, and we've given him an extension until I think 2023 off the top of my head. We gave him a new deal effectively, but that to me said that regardless of what happens this season, you are going to be our man. So even if I think there was, he had a little bit of leeway because of the short turnaround time between the end of the season and the start of this season, and the fact that it was the playoffs, which teams that come up through the playoffs are always at a disadvantage. So he had his hands tied completely behind his back. So I think the owners were saying, right, this season, not so much a free hit, but we're not going to judge you too harshly on what goes on. So if you take us down, I made the comparison earlier. If you take us down, you've shown you can do this. We'll do the Sean Dyche. Until I die, Sean Dyche will always be the model for this. You've taken us up once, you get us relegated, you'll take us back up again. I think that was always going to be the plan, to at least give him this season. If we were in a Sheffield United situation where we were, 11 points off 30 games, or just doing completely disastrously, I think that would have been a different discussion. But you could see the progress that was being made come, around December time. So I think that just brought him enough of a lifeline to get him through till maybe February, and then what we've seen in recent weeks, that's got him until the end of the season, and then we'll see what goes on from there. So I don't really think Scott Parker was really in any sort of immediate or positive threat in that sort of way. I don't think he was ever under any danger.
Joe, I'm just curious. Do you think West Brom are gone? Do you think they can survive?
Nah, West Brom are gone. Sheffield United are gone. I've not included West Brom in any of the debates for a couple of months now. If anything, the form's picked up recently, and they've got a little bit closer than what I expected them to be at this time. But it's too little, too late. They're definitely gone. Same with Sheffield United. They've been gone since third game in. Really, they've been absolutely abysmal.
So it's one team from five, in other words.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. It's us, Newcastle, Fulham, or Brighton. Who's the other one? Us, Newcastle, Fulham, Brighton. Yeah, I think it's 1 from 4, isn't it, at the minute?
4, yeah.
1 from 4. Sorry, yes, 1 from 4.
Yeah, because I think just above us is Southampton, and I can't see them. But they're on 33 now. If they don't win a game between now and the end of the season, then yeah, they'll probably go down. But I can't really see. Yeah, they got league tables there. So just above us is obviously Southampton. They were recently on 30 points, and I remember having a few discussions about whether or not they're in danger. But they managed to get a win recently. I can't remember who they were against. And that's, for me, there are enough points clear there. And Palace, again, same with Palace. You can forget Palace. And they've got some winnable games coming up as well at Palace. So, I think you forget Palace. Forget Southampton unless they go on an absolutely abysmal run and don't win again. But it annoys me how they've lost 9-0 twice out of this season and last season, and yet they're miles away from any sort of trouble. I remember when they got beaten 9-0 last season as a Southampton fan at work. And I said to them, you can't survive that. You're definitely down. And obviously they've done it again now. They're not even in the debate this year. But it's one of us four, I think.
I think it's hard to imagine that they were top of the league just before Christmas as well. Southampton were on that sort of run. They got top of the league, and now look at them. They're smack bang down in the relegation zone. But I think, do you worry, Joe? Obviously, you've played one game more than the teams around you, and given your goal difference as well. Do you worry about that?
A little bit, and that's why this point against Arsenal was so important, because we were 5 points before the Leicester game. Then we obviously got the point against Leicester. That made it 6 points. But when you're one of the teams above the relegation zone who's worried about getting dragged into it, you're always looking at the team who's currently 18th. And in that situation, then it was Fulham. So I was looking at Fulham and looking at our goal difference, comparing it to Fulham's. And I was thinking, right, it's 6 points, but it's effectively only 5, because if Fulham win their 2 games, they go above us quite comfortably on goal difference as well. So that 7th point made it minimum 3 games for Fulham to take over us. Obviously Fulham have got that win against Liverpool, so that logic is all out the window. Now it's minimum 2 games. But obviously, again, they've got a poor run in terms of fixtures coming up. So, fingers crossed it could still be 4, or even we could get it back up to 6 or 7 by then. But the goal difference is a worry, yeah. But that extra point, apart from being 3, if it were 3 points, I'd be resigning myself to relegation, knowing me and my anxiety. But it's that 4th point, I think, just helps us out a little bit because of that goal difference.
Matt, do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things, goal difference. Yeah, and we were talking about this earlier. We were on one of the other chats I was doing. It is the fact that, as you said, that 4th point, that extra game, that little cushion that it gives you, just gives you enough leeway to sort of give you a little bit of a, you're not totally out of danger, but the fact that they need to win 2 games to get above you rather than just win the 1, it just makes things a whole lot easier.
Okay. Stephen, where do you see Newcastle finishing the end of the season?
Oh, I would say 17th, 16th, 17th. I would say I'm not aiming at sights too high. I mean, Brighton's on a bad run. They've lost the last 3. Like you said, they can't score goals. They've had about near enough 70, 80 shots, and they've had about not even a handful on target. So, like you said, they can't score goals. I've got a sneaking suspicion Brighton might get dragged into it. I think Fulham might survive and leapfrog Newcastle into probably 16th, and that's where probably Fulham will finish, 16th. And Newcastle will finish 17th. I think Brighton will go down, but I don't think it's going to be by much. But they'll go down by probably a couple of points, I would say, Brighton. It's not going to be much. It's going to be 1 win, within 1 win, I would say.
Joe, who do you want to go down?
Who do I want to go down?
West Brom and Sheffield United. Yeah.
Who do I want to go down? Manchester United, if possible. Is that possible? I'm not too bothered unless it's not us. But if I had to choose somebody, I'd choose Brighton. I'm not just saying that because Connor's not here anymore. Who do I think will go down? That's Newcastle, but we'll get into that in a second. Just to prove I'm not just saying it because he's not here. But Burnley and Brighton, I don't know what it is with Burnley and Brighton fans. They always seem to be bickering at each other on Twitter. I try not to get involved in stuff like that, but Brighton fans always love a bicker at Burnley, calling us, certain slanders like racist and stuff like that, or whatever. The usual toxicity you see on Twitter.
It's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Well, it's mainly because of the James Rodriguez Bong thing, and then it all escalated from there because obviously at the time he played for West Brom. But he's a Burnley lad, and then he came back to Burnley. So Burnley fans were sticking up for Jay, West Brom fans were sticking up for Jay, Brighton were obviously on Team Bong, as you'd expect. But then sort of like loads of slander started getting thrown about, which was just all unnecessary. But as we all know, Twitter's not the best place to gauge public opinion. It's a very toxic place. As much as we all love it, it's very toxic at the same time, mainly thanks to football Twitter and all these people hiding behind names such as Magnificent Morpay or, Brilliant Jeff Hendrick or whatever it is. But if I had to choose somebody, because it'd be that. But then obviously Jay Rodriguez came back to Burnley, and then Burnley and Brighton now tend to have this weird sort of like rivalry. And it kind of stemmed as well a little bit from the time when we were both in the Championship, because it were Burnley, Middlesbrough and Brighton one year. all battling for that top spot. Burnley ended up winning the Championship, Middlesbrough finished second, and Brighton finished third, and then messed up in the playoffs. And I don't know if they've just had a bit of a bee in the bonnet about that ever since, but if I had to choose somebody to go down out of the four that's in it, I'd choose Brighton. But if it could be an ideal world, I'd actually get Southampton dragged into it. I'd rather, if I could choose anybody, it'd be Southampton. But I don't. I think Southampton have just got enough. I don't get the Hassan Hootel hype. I think that's the problem.
We did have Connor, and he's gone again. Never mind.
I enjoyed a few.
I'm going to say personally. I'm going to say I want Brighton to go down as well, just because basically that the way that they annihilated us at the start of the season, they absolutely trounced us 3-0 at St James's Park, and I was so looking forward to that game, and it was just a horrendous day after that. I was in such a foul mood. I had to go with my missus and everything. It was horrible that day. So that's basically the reason why I want Brighton to go down. I don't agree with all this Graham Potter being the next Guardiola and this.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I don't get the hype on Graham Potter. I don't get it at all. He plays nice football, but football's judged on results. There seems to be this weird snobbery these days amongst football fans that you have to play in a certain way. It stemmed from the top six. The top six do not like the fact that you defend against them. And it's stemmed down now because of that. Say like when Burnley go to Man City and try and defend, or West Brom go to Liverpool and try and defend, they all just kick off. Oh, you should play like that. You should play open, expansive attacking football. If Burnley went to Manchester United and played open, expansive attacking football, or the Emirates, they get murdered every single week. You've got to play to your strengths. And I think because of that, it's all sort of like gone down, and now there has to be a certain way that you play. People expect you to have a high expected goals, this new random stat that everyone loves, and I'm not a fan of that, mate. I don't understand why people expect you to play in a certain way. You're playing whatever way you want. If you're getting results and we're finishing 10th and 7th, like we have done 2 out of the last 3 Premier League seasons, who cares if we're compact? It don't matter. We play to our strengths, and Newcastle did that at the start of the season as well. But it's caught up with Newcastle.
Yeah, well said.
Connor, welcome back.
Yeah, sorry lads, my wife has been worse than in front of goal.
We've just been basically asking who you want to go down, so I'm going to ask you the same question, and who do you want and why?
Right, so I think I heard a bit, and I heard the Brighton Burnley thing. Okay, maybe, but I think it's between Newcastle and Burnley for me. So like both Championship, we had the rivalry in the Championship. Like Newcastle, they stole the league from us and all this lot, and then the Burnley went up when we didn't. Okay, no. Okay, we bottled it, but you still won the league. You still won the league when we had 3 games to go to get 3 points, and should have won the league. And then, but okay, if I had to choose 2, it'd probably be the other one, be Burnley, because it stems back from the Joey Barton thing in the Championship, like one season, where Joey Barton stamped on Kyle, and then he went and scored the last minute winner at the 96th minute or something. And then that was the season you guys got promoted, and we bottled it to Middlesbrough as well.
Yeah, there's a theme of Brighton bottling it here, isn't there? You got promoted eventually. You've got a bottle right there. Right on cue. But at least you got promoted eventually,
Yeah. Mordiame 2-1, wasn't it? Was it Mordiame? Lucky goal, 2-1.
Oh, that was the worst goal I've ever seen. It bounced up
the jammiest goal there has ever been, and it was brilliant.
Best goal in the Premier in the Championship, that was.
Matthew, who do you want to go down and why?
It's going to be a full house, other than obviously Connor, but for me it's Brighton, only because you can't have Fulham, obviously, obvious reason. I don't think Burnley will do it, and honestly I quite like Burnley. I've got no issue with them, and because I've heard that people have told me that I sound like Sean Dyche, so I've got a lot of respect for him. And I think he's going to do great things. And more than that, my very best friend is a Newcastle United fan. His last name is Shearer, so that sort of tells you the affiliation that he has. So I cannot fathom a world where the tension has already started to grow between me and him. I've been making some mind the gap jokes towards him the past couple of days, and he just kind of. But I do not want to live. My friendship between him and me will not last if we stay up and Newcastle United go down. So it is by process of elimination. Just because Brighton are a bit meh in my eyes, I don't have any feelings, pro or against them. They're there. It's a really nice stadium, but I just don't have any affiliation to them one way or another. So by process of elimination, it has to be Brighton.
You're getting ganged up on it.
Stephen, do you want to finish it off?
Well, I think Connor's getting ganged up on here. We're all saying Brighton
Yeah,
is down.
You should have stayed away, mate. You shouldn't have come back.
Yeah.
Good away day, though.
Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, in Spain.
Stephen, do you want to go down the way?
Well, I would say Brighton as well. I wish I should join the club. But I've always said I think Brighton will go to. They can't. I'm not having to go ahead, but I'm saying they can't score goals. They can have as many shots as they want in games. Yes, it may look for good football. It may look like they're trying, but it's all about putting the ball in the back of the net as many times as you can in the game. And for me, Brighton can't do enough of that. They got Adam Lallana, he's a good player, yeah, but he's not like a 15, 20 goal striker. Neil Maupay, he's not a bad player either, but he scores when he's in the mood. You got some hell of a players like Trossard, Basuma. Basuma seems to hit them from 35 yards, thinking they're going to go in the top corner, but I think Brighton myself. I don't want to say Newcastle, but I'd say Brighton. If I had to choose one between Fulham playing too well, I think they'll get out of it easily. And Brighton's on the same kind of slump as what Newcastle's in. So if I was to choose between my club and Brighton, I would have to say Brighton.
Connor, just when you were away before, I said Brighton as well, just basically because of the way that you transferred St James's Park earlier in the season. But I just want to ask you one last question just before we head off. Do you think that you'll keep Tariq Lamptey?
Ooh, I don't know, because I think we might keep him for this summer, but I think he'll go maybe the January or the summer after that, because he's been injured for quite a lot of the season. So I think teams might not bid like what we'd want for him this summer, knowing that he's injury prone. I don't know. He's only had one injury, but as a young age, if his knees, they might want to see what his knees like next season, and then if he does well again for the first 6 months or for the whole season, then I think he'll go. But I think we'll keep him this summer.
Cool. Well, we'll wrap it up there. I just want to say thanks for all coming on. Stephen, thanks as always. Connor, good luck at the end of the season. I hope we're all rooting for Brighton to go down, so you never know. Joe, Matt, thanks very much. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button when you're there, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah.
Cheers, lad.